welcome to the live Q&A session for Management Consulting Semester 1 2022 program. My name is Joker, and I'm an experiential learning coordinator from the Faculty of Business and Economics. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the lands of the Wurundjeri people who have been custodians of this land for thousands of years, and acknowledge and pay our respects to the elders past and present. Today, you will firstly hear from the Management Consulting Academic Subject Coordinator, Chris Young. Following that, we will be joined by a past student of the subject, Kathy Chai, who is going to share her experience in undertaking management consulting in semester 1 this year. After that, we will open up the floor for your questions. Before we get started, please ensure that you are muted during the presentation. If you have any questions for Chris or Kathy, please pop them into the chat box and we will answer them when we open the floor up for questions. This session will also be recorded and made available on our website afterwards. So I will now hand over to Chris to chat about management consulting. Over to you, Chris.
Hi, everyone. So welcome to those of you that are here live with us, and those of you that are listening to the recording, welcome as well. So you probably know that there on our website with information about management consulting that we have a video recording. It runs about 15 minutes that covers what is management consulting, what you can expect, the benefits to you in participating, and really encouraging you to apply. So you hopefully have had a chance to watch that and are bringing some questions today, maybe about your application or specifics about the program. But just to really just give you a sort of 60-second, maybe 2-minute overview, it's running in semester 1. It's going to run online, and it is a 12-week experience program where you're going to be paired on it with a team with a live consulting project, and that's going to run the entirety of the semester, working with that team to basically learn consulting concepts. Regardless of the team or the project that you're going to be signed on, you're going to come away with great experience in teamwork. You're going to be working on a live project. You're going to have that consulting understanding of the tools. I'm gonna throw some terms around. We're gonna do SCQA. Kathy, this will of course take you back. So issue trees and SCQA and the Minto principle and how to put together reports, how to get really good at doing presentations. And all of that is going to build your toolbox of the things that you know about and are able to do in a consulting space. And for some of you, it might help you decide that consulting is the field for you. We also do have students that after the experience say, well, maybe consulting isn't for me. But nonetheless, after those 12 weeks, you're going to be stronger. You're going to be better at those tools and those skills. And after that, you will take it and see where you go. So I really strongly encourage you to apply, and I'll be answering some questions, but I do want to turn it over to Kathy because truly, as the subject coordinator and one of the coaches, I have my view and my love of this subject. But Kathy has been where you perhaps hope to be and can give you a real sort of in the seat view. So Kathy, would you like to share?
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Kathy and I'm a third-year commerce student majoring in accounting and management. So I would say MC is quite a great experience and worth everyone to apply. Yeah, honestly, and during the process, the communication skills, the problem solving skills, the teamwork will definitely benefit your future career. And I will probably start with my motivations and my application process, then talking a little bit about my experience working with a team and working with our clients. Finally, we'll say something that did not mention in the handbook, but you can still expect on. So yeah, give you an overview of our project. And our team have 5 members, and our client is Deloitte, which is a slightly different from other group. They are not like other group organizations, some famous firms, but ours is the actual consulting firm. So the working mode may be like more like training and coaching And our project topic is how Australian retailers respond to the growing prevalence of online marketplace. So kind of analyzing the whole industry. So a little bit broad topic. And I will start my motivation and application process. Like I have some experience in the case competition and learn a little bit about how to do a strategy, how to do the marketing planning, but do not have some real world like experience. So I really want to have such a real world consulting, and I know MC is quite a good place for you to like explore how the real world industry will be, and to talking with the industry leader to address the real world business issue. So that's why I want to apply MC to really get some insight for this business. And for the application stage, I do not have an interview because I know it's COVID-19, so do not have an interview now. I guess the application is quite dependent on your resume and your academic performance. And what I put in my application is my previous experience in the case competition. So kind of demonstrate my problem solving skills, my communication skills. And I also mentioned my design skill by using Canva, because that's coming from my social media design experience. I guess these things can help me to succeed in the application stage. And next, I talking about the working in a team. There is a challenges to completing the subject remotely, and I was so lucky to have amazing teammates who encourage and support each other. Like we assign our responsibility at the first. For example, I was a liaison with the uni, so writing email to our tutors, like discussing or arranging some meetings was my job. By doing this, everyone can clearly know their responsibilities and to ensure the smooth progress of this project. But it does not mean everyone should just to focus on their own thing. We still need to spend a long time to discussing, analyzing, and working together. As we know, MC really needs high-level analytical skills and very focused attention. So friends here, support is quite important. I remember one moment, like our project has already finished 2/3, and we did a lot of research on one particular session, but just one our group member found this part might be unnecessary, how shocked we are at that moment. But, we are very confident, although we are nervous and depressed, but, everyone are trying their best to resolve the problem. So like some of us did the evidence research, some of us are doing like reviewing the whole structure. So everyone is like confident to resolve this problems. So, at that time, how powerful is the coherence of the team, even if you are meeting the difficulties. And yeah, and for the contribution each week, I would say our group meeting 3 to 4 meetings per week. And we will assign 1 meeting per week with your client. But for our group, it's quite different. Deloitte is quite a coaching and responsible team. So we arrange 2 meetings in a week, 1 in the middle and 1 at the end of the week, to ensure everything is on the right track. And yeah, that's pretty much about the contribution time. The last thing is something you can expect from this subject, but I guess it's not mentioned in the handbook. The first thing is you will have a huge amount of mentoring and training, but you still need to combine with your self-learning and your self-initiative. Like you have consulting with your mentors, tutors, and clients, but besides that, you need to have a large amount of time like working by yourself. So at that time, self-motivation is quite important. You need to figure out the solution by yourself. You cannot directly ask them what to do and what to do next, how to do next. You need to figure out it by yourself. Second thing is this subject really need high level of professional skills. So, like COVID has pushed all things online, but we still need to behave professionally. Like, for example, each meeting with our clients, we dress quite formally, like usually wear a suit or a shirt. And we had a consistent virtual background for our team members to just perform very professional. And also for the assignment requirement, it's really need high professional. Like I remember for our first assignment, we saw we have already made it quite professional, but when you see like marks and your comments, you know there's a lot of place to improve. But throughout the whole way of this subject, you will find your professional skills like writing or speaking improve quite a lot. Like at the end of the project, you will find when you see your first assignment, you will quite see like, oh, it's not professional. You will tell the difference by yourself. And the last thing is you will learn some practical things like how to get better use of library resources. For me, it's quite useful. Like I never know how to browse millions of industry report or company report, just use Unimail account. But like in this subject, you will get some insights by using Unimail library. They are all free, and it's also helped my other subject like EPM, LCON, or business judgment kind of thing. So it's quite useful. Yeah, that's pretty about my experience.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Katie. And before we move on to the Q&A session, Chris, do you have anything else to add to Katie's comment, or do you have any questions for Katie?
No, I would say, Kathy, your experience is just a real personal one, but I think it's one that is also shared by many of the students in the subject. You talked about some of the challenges, which are absolutely there. It is a heavy workload. It gets busier and heavier as you get closer to week 12 because you start to have to do analysis. And you just start to know what you're doing, right? About, I think it changes for everybody, but we're in week 9 at the moment. And, Kathy, if you remember week 9, for many students or consultants, it just sort of clicks like, oh, that's what we're doing. Now I get it. And then it can get fun as well when you really start to get a handle on the training about the consultant tools. And you make a really good point about the self-learning, right? So we give the resources and we train you as student consultants, but you do have to take initiative and you do have to figure things out with some guidance in terms of support, but absolutely the work falls to the team. And I think that's scary at first, because you don't know what you're doing. But I've been a consultant, and it is scary for me in practice when I don't know the client and I don't know what I'm doing or what they need, but we all figure it out. And I'm so pleased, Kathy, that your experience mirrors it's what we hope for, which is that you get better and you get proficient and you enjoy yourself. So thank you, Kathy. Great.
All right, thank you so much, Chris. So now we're moving on to our question session. So if you have questions, please put them on to the chat box right now, or feel free to turn on your video and ask Chris or Katie directly. So go ahead.
I have a question. So seeing as the Australian borders are projected to be open by December, or hopefully next year at least, will next year's session of MC also be virtual, or will it be physical?
My understanding, Joko, it's been decided that it's going to be online. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chris. So semester 1 2022 will be run online.
Okay, understood. And that's really great, because so Louis, we do quite a bit of preparation and planning and because we're working with clients who are working in industry, the more heads up that we can give them, and we just make those arrangements ahead of time. But I think that's really great, because that means depending on where people are, where students are, and what the changes happen between now and semester 1, anybody is eligible, because they'll be able to access the meetings through Zoom, which is really great.
Anyone else with questions, feel free to pop them into our chat box.
Great, good question. Thank you. So the question is, what will the selection criteria be? So the application, the minimum, I'll say from the start, there is a minimum WAM of 60, correct, Joko? So you have to have 60 plus in your WAM, but then we look at a variety of other factors. We look at, we look at things like availability, we look at the client needs, we will look at the answers to your questions on the application, we look at your area of study, and we may be looking to have interviews. So that is an option that we may pick up and do interviews depending. And then in that case, the interview questions will be be a component of the whole application selection process.
And just clarifying that the minimum WAM is 65% or higher.
65. Apologies, yes.
And perhaps maybe I would like also to go into the resume requirement. So we won't actually ask you to submit your resume at the point of your application, but we do require you to submit a resume once you have been selected, as we'll be passing on your resume to your assigned industry partners.
I was curious, for those of you that are with us live, have you known anyone that's taken the subject, or is this sort of a brand new subject that you're coming to learn about? If you're happy to respond in chat, I'd just be interested if you know anything about it or have any friends, fellow students that have taken it.
I heard about this from one of my friends that took it in semester 1.
Took it in semester 1, okay. And based on that, you're thinking about applying as well?
Yep. She put me onto it.
Oh, great. Excellent. And are there any sort of, based on what she said, were there any things that you're particularly keen on, or is there anything that you thought might be a challenge in terms of applying? Not applying, but in terms of completing the subject?
I heard that the level of autonomy is really, really different to the other subjects that we do. And that makes it a lot more difficult because you're on your own, but you don't really have experience in this. So just like Kathy said, it was a similar sentiment.
Yeah, okay. So Kathy, could I ask you to speak to that sense of feeling like you were, do you mind? I mean, I have my take on that, but it's coming from the training and this coordinator. Kathy, what was that like for you to have that autonomy, and how did it change for you over the semester?
I guess from the beginning, I just quite nervous, and like for our topic, it's quite broad, like the whole retail industry, and we don't know where to start. But after we consulting with our tutors and our clients, we just focus on the 3 specific sessions, like home wealth and fast fashion and also grocery. So it's kind of helped me to narrow down the range, and you can find the specific recommendations for each session. And then throughout the whole process, it's quite after you're reading a lot of resources and consulting with your clients, your tutors, even discussing your teammates, you will find it's quite more clear for the whole process and the whole project. So you will gain a lot of confidence on it. And even after each assignment, the assignment is gradually the difficulty level has increased, but after you finish all the assignment, you will find, it's okay. You can find the solutions to it, and you will have a lot of confidence to it. Yeah.
Kathy, if you were to take this subject again, knowing what you know now, would you feel that same sense of nervousness, or how is your sort of, I guess, how does that, what you've learned change? Like, I guess I'm sort of wondering, in reflecting back, would you do something differently, or how would you feel now?
Yeah, definitely would a little bit different for the research methods. Like I have learned a lot of method, like how to do the research, how to do the issue tree, how to identify the problems. But I guess I was quite nervous for the new topic because you are new for this topic and you don't know, like you may not know the knowledge of this industry. You still have to learn research and do a lot of stuff. So yeah, probably the feelings is the same, but yeah, you just, because you have gained a lot of experience in it, so you are more like comfortable with the process.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kathy. And that's helpful because we are teaching you the process absolutely in those tools. You know, it's interesting, this idea of autonomy, because the reality is the coaches and even the clients, the team spends so much time doing the research. They're really involved on a weekly basis, meeting with various stakeholders, doing surveys, getting into the research. You have a research librarian that you're assigned. So you're really getting into it in a way that the autonomy is actually a bit of freedom, in the sense that other people don't know it as well as you do. So we can guide you on the tools and the process and how to do an issue tree, but what the content is in an issue tree and how you organize it and how you analyze that data is always going to fall back to the team, as it will in professional settings as well, because nobody's going to know that detail and that information like the team that's immersed in it. So autonomy is a scary thing, but I think it's inevitable in this subject.
Yeah, I also want to add that, like, your teammate support is really important. Like sometimes I just go, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to do that. I don't know what to do, but at this time your team will support you and, oh, let's do this 1, 2, 3, and then, oh, you just kind of gain some motivations for it because you have a mutual goal for this subject. You want to do like H1 or present very professionally and get the credit from your clients. So when you have the mutual goal and your support from your team members, you're kind of like motivated for this subject.
Great, thanks, Kathy. Louis, I noticed in the chat that you mentioned you have a few friends that are taking it now. Did that lead you to have any questions about the subject based on anything that they've said or what you've heard about it so far?
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask about the workload. I know one of my friends, he mentioned it's something like doing like 2 subjects at once or something. So I was just kind of curious, like how the subject works. Is it 12 weeks of lectures on top of your work for your client? And I guess by extension, you know, what's the workload like? How the assignments, if any?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk you through that. So it does run for 12 weeks and there are 12 lectures. So the lectures run Mondays for 1 hour. And what those are is for the entire 60 students in the cohort. And we're talking about the wider information that you need for the tool. So we're talking about, for example, generally what are issue trees, generally report structure, general communication skills, and presenting, things that everybody needs to know. Those are not recorded, so you have to be there in person because we will at times talk about client materials, and we don't record any of these sessions due to the nature of the material that we're talking about. So you have an hour lecture every week. Then you will go into an hour and a half, a 2-hour workshop. So it's still 3 hours like it would be in any subject, but we divide 1 hour lecture for everyone and then a 2-hour workshop. And that's with the 20 people and your assigned coach. And you have your 4 to 5 total group team members. And in the workshop is when you actually start to take the lecture material and apply it to your team. So in the week that we talk about issue trees, then you move into the workshop and you're whiteboarding issue trees and talking them through and getting advice from your coach and seeing what other teams are doing. So you're actually applying it practically those skills to your individual client. And then the other requirement every week is you have an assigned 4-hour time block. We call it a client meeting, but it simply means this is the time you're expected to be online with your team as part of your client discussion. And so it's either Tuesday, it's one of the days of the week, Tuesday through Friday, and it's 4 hours. Your client also has that link during that time, and that's when you would schedule a time to meet with them. So it's this understanding that the client knows you're working, your team knows you're working, and that's the time. So they don't schedule you a time that nobody's available. It's always a client meeting is scheduled within that time. And so you're expected to be online. So it's the 3 hours for the lecture workshop and then 4 hours for the client meeting. So 7 hours a week that you're expected to be on Zoom in a meeting, discussing.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in addition to that, so what I find happens is that as you're learning the process, I would say in the first sort of 6-7 weeks, the number of client meetings, and Kathy's experience may have been slightly different, but generally the number of, additional student times that you meet are low, right? Because you've got a small 5% project charter, a 5% team contract, a 5% data collection plan. Those things start small. And so you're working on those. But around week 6 or 7 is when you're getting into your data collection. And then 8 through 12 is when you're analyzing the data and writing your report. So it tends to start lighter and then ramp up as you get towards the report. And I think part of that is that it gets to be more enjoyable because you're working with data and you're actually producing and writing something and working on your client presentation, and it starts to make sense. So I find that the teams actually seem to want to meet more because they know what they're doing. But Kathy, was that your experience?
Because our project is slightly different, so kind of like maybe not too intense in the first 3 weeks, but our group meets many times after week 3, I think. Yeah, and also for our clients, they ask us to meet every 2 times per week. So in the middle and at the end of the Friday. So in the middle weeks, they just check how we progress and what was discussed in Friday has been worked on. So they just check us and give us some recommendations or advice, some feedback. Yeah, and for the Friday session, we maybe discuss the next week task and then to work on it. So for me, it's quite intensive. Honestly, it's quite intensive. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Kathy, for sharing that experience. Louis, does that help? Did that lead you to any other questions, Louis, based on sort of that response?
None for now, I think. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Louis. Sorry, Joko, you were going to mention something.
Oh, yeah, sure. So we have a question from Cindy on how is this subject different from global management consulting?
So my understanding that GMC is 2 weeks long. Is that correct?
Yeah, so GMC, or we call it the global management consulting, is an intensive subject, which is different to management consulting in terms of the length of the program. Yeah.
So typically, Cindy, my understanding with GMC is that they were traveling overseas, and so the amount of time they were working in this intensive 2-week project, doing much of the same things that we do over 12 weeks, but in an intensive format. And some students prefer that. They're different projects, although the tools and the process is the same, but it's much speedier. And then this one gives you more time and is more spread out.
And also with global management consulting, the students are given international business projects, so from international clients.
Great, thanks, Joko. Any advice on how to create a strong application? What I would say is to take the application seriously. So recognizing that we do have a strong numbers in application. So would be to, answer the questions with thoughtfulness, considering what you bring to the subject. The WAM is just, the WAM is what it is. So unfortunately, if anyone's below a 65 WAM, you're ineligible. There is one other criteria. You have to take an organizational behavior in order to be eligible for the subject. And then I think also you can't have more than a certain number of credit hours, but Joko may be able to speak to those specifics. But my overall suggestion is to take the application seriously and give it thought as you fill it out. Thanks.
So in terms of the number of points, so for management consulting, you have to have completed a minimum of 150 points at the commencement of the subject. So if you're still completing a subject, we will take that into account in terms of the credit by the time the subject has started, which will be in semester 1, 2022.
Anything else come to mind? Maybe circling around anything at all that you're curious about or have heard or worried about, anything?
Just wondering, I'm not sure if you're allowed to review this, but what are the previous clients in MC? Is it generally the same every cycle? Yeah.
It's a good question. So many of our clients do return. So we get some of the consulting firms come back. We have a rotation, not rotation, but as they're available, recognizing that they're also working and the availability of their projects. But we have, Deloitte, EY, KPMG, Pitcher Partners, so forth. But we also work with other organizations such as Bupa, or we've worked with the AFL previously. Oh gosh. Insurance companies. We work with membership organizations as well. So RACV previously, we have worked with museums. We also have had government organizations like the Treasury organization, and I'm trying to think some non-for-profits as well. So it really we have a lot of companies and organizations that have worked with us previously. We do have a limited, because of the cap on the subject, we do have a limited number of projects that we can take on. So we sort of not rotate, but sort of consider what our options are. And some of our clients also work with the other experiential programs as well. But it's interesting because when we think about management consulting, sometimes students will think about the consulting companies. But my one promise is it doesn't matter what project you're on. You are learning a process that matters. So we have students that will be on, let's say, not a library, the museum project or AFL, and the process that they learn, they then turn around and apply for a consulting company and get an interview, right? Based on, in part, their own studies and their WAM and what they offer, but partly the experience that they got about the process and the tools, even though it was with a non-consulting company, that carries over. So while it is management consulting, I never want students to be sort of focused only on doing a consulting company, because you learn great skills no matter which project you're on.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Chris.
I don't know, maybe in some ways the pressure's off. I don't know if I can say that, but I'm sure it's not, but I'm sure there's pressure in every single project, but there's certainly benefits. And interestingly, we have had students that have been successful in getting interviews with the projects that they've worked on. And we do have some students that have gained employment with the company that they did the consulting project with, or another project as well. So these are opportunities, I would say, for organizations to see you in action, to see students in action, and to see what they're capable of. Because remember, the clients are meeting with you as a team every week. So your coaches are getting to know you from the academic side, but the clients are getting to know you as well. And then add to that the networking opportunities. So you're going to be working and building relationships with the 5 members of your team, with your workshop participants, with your coach, with me as the coordinator, and those network relationships carry on once the subject is done. And that's the biggest, I think, one of the biggest pluses of this subject, is that all of this experience is yours. You take it with you. The subject comes and goes, but these skills and relationships, they belong to you. and they're yours forever. So.
Well, I do actually have a question for Katie. So, Katie, I know that you work with your team virtually. How did you juggle with the different time zone, or what sort of tools did you use to work collaboratively with your team virtually?
Like we actually just have 2 time zones. One is Indonesia and one is Melbourne time. So for the time zone, it's not a big deal for us, but we meet with Zoom or sometimes with Microsoft Teams. Yeah, so that's the main technique we use. I guess the main difference is the main difficulty is you need to arrange the time before each meeting, and even before each week, so everyone can arrange their time quite well, because other students also have their own things, other subjects to focus on. So we really need to have this time slot to work on this project. So my suggestion is you to plan ahead of time so you can better arrange them.
Thank you, Kathy.
May I add to that really quick? Apologies.
Sure.
One of, just for those listening, one of the reasons we set that client meeting every week of 4 hours is because then you always know you have 4 hours, that time zones and time issues and conflicts shouldn't make any difference, because everybody on the team has committed to being available, and it's a hurdle requirement as well. You have to attend every week 100%, and that means that you always can count on that 4 hour time block that everybody can get together at a minimum, plus the other times that you organize. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that, Chris. And so if you still have any questions, please put them in the chat box, or just turn on your video and ask Chris or Katie directly.
Good question. So the question is, how are teams chosen in terms of putting members together? Well, partly we look at a combination of things. We look at a combination of the application information, so WAM, location, your degree, the skills that you have, your interests, and then we also look at client availability. And then there's some other sort of requirements around that the client may have for the individual team members as well. So we look at all of those things to put the teams together, or I do. And it's typically 5 team members per project. On occasion, there may be 4, but there would never be less than 4 that I'm aware of, and there will not be more than 5. So it's between 4 and 5 team members. You do not get to choose your teams, just to be clear on that. There is no preference for a consulting company or a government organization or a sports team, because it's not about, no matter which of those teams you're on, you're not learning about their field. What you're learning is the process to consult on a project for them. And so, for example, having an interest in sports would not be any reason to be assigned to, the AFL, for example. It's about learning the tools and the techniques.
I will probably give it maybe for a minute more. If you have any questions, please put them down on our chat box.
I hope everyone that's on does consider putting forth an application. It really is a great subject. It is, look, I think you can tell when I speak about it, I'm a big fan. I've been involved with it now for years. I'm a big fan of the students and the way that the project works and the training that we give you, it's built on really sound principles. And even more than that, I love this because of the things that Kathy said, which is the benefits to the students that complete it. That's just the sort of prime focus on building up your skills. And I hope you do apply. It's a great subject.